Welcome back to another episode of Right Here in Mass. Joining me today is Mayor Joshua Garcia, the first Latino to be elected mayor of Holyoke. Joshua has been a lifelong citizen of this city, and of Puerto Rican descent. He was raised in a low-income, single-mother household in South Holyoke on South Summer Street. Mayor Garcia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. I'm really looking forward to this episode and having our listeners learn more about you and what you do. But I would love to start things by having you share with us who you are, what you do as mayor, all of that fun stuff.
All right. Well, how much time do we have? I'm hoping a lot of time.
Plenty of time.
Who I am? Well, I am Joshua Garcia. I was born and raised here in the city of Holyoke. Uh, you know, uh, a product of my environment here in the city, and we can go more into what that means. Went on and got my degree at Westfield State University, both my bachelor's and my master's there, and landed a career at the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. It's a regional planning organization. There's 13 of them across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and they exist by statute. And for 5 years is working there is where I really I got to learn a lot about local government management, working with leadership up and down the Pioneer Valley here in Western Massachusetts, doing analysis and best practices, trying to understand how to improve their municipal services, offer recommendations and how they can achieve economies of scale for taxpayers, keep up with Mass General Law. And not too long after that, I landed a career at a small town outside of the city of Westfield called the Town of Blandford as their town administrator. And that's where I got a lot of my practical experience in the local government management world. Uh, Worked there for 3 years. And when an opportunity came up here in my own hometown, it wasn't my intent to run for mayor. There were about, I think, 5 or 6 candidates running for the position. And through a much, through a conversation with some folks, I quickly pivoted and decided to pull papers and became the last candidate to jump in the race and late in the game.
My gosh.
And the rest is history. And here I am. And what I get to do as mayor, well, there's a lot of things. Uh, we have here in our city, in our form of government, the mayor is it's antiquated form of government. The mayor is the city manager, the CEO, the CFO, the chief of staff, among other things. And so in our campaign, we ran a management campaign, very non-traditional campaign focused on the things that people really don't know or understand and what's involved when managing a municipality.
Mhm.
Um, and that was a very different lens that people I feel haven't for the first time understood oh that makes sense, right? And this guy
Yeah.
sounds like he knows what he's talking about, rather than like the traditional, support our police officers and our teachers and let's fix our roads. And no question, we got to do those things. And I don't think there's anybody that's against doing any of that. It's how you're going to do it and within the confinements of the laws and what's available for resources, because resources are always limited.
Right.
And so since starting as mayor, we've been focused on doing what we need to do to strengthen internal controls, but also do the systemic changes in our chart and our city ordinances that are kind of restructuring and how we manage our local financial resources so that there's continuity no matter who's the mayor or city council. We have an internal core function that is keeping up with the basic day-to-day things that are involved with managing city resources. So this conversation can go in a billion different directions, Ashley, and I think I've given enough there to see where this conversation will lead us.
Absolutely. You mentioned one part about deciding to run for mayor based on conversations you were having with a few different people. And if you're comfortable sharing, I would love to
Yes.
hear what inspired that or maybe what came about to bring you to
So
pulling the papers for it.
yeah, so here's the thing. Born and raised in this city, I have been involved in many different youth initiatives as a kid, different programs and different quality of life objectives. Prior to getting my master's and working for the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, I worked for the Holyoke Housing Authority uh, and built a lot of experience there and connections doing trying to help navigate social determinants of health disparities and helping people overcome social challenges and among other things. So just being involved in so many different things. I served on the board of fire commissioners as a civilian board member, learned a lot there, was involved in different planning initiatives as an advisory member, and just very involved in my community.
Mhm.
And so naturally, you get the question, right, from people, how come you don't run for mayor, right? And so, I like the career trajectory that I was on in local government management, town administration. I know I'm an elected mayor, but I got to tell you, I cannot stand politics. It drives me nuts. I like the appointed, focused on executing the laws and helping communities make informed decisions rather than on the political side. And that's what you do as a town manager, town administrator, city manager. You're less in the political weeds and more in executing and making sure that whatever local leadership wants to do, that they're not doing anything illegal and
Right.
within budget, right? So it took a lot. It was a big risk running for mayor. There's a lot in line, and I worried a little bit in what that could mean if I didn't do well. And if I didn't get elected, I didn't want to, I love my city. I don't want to feel disappointed winning losing a race, right? And all these things were going through my head. So I had no interest at the time. And so we were having a conversation with friends one day, and my wife was there, and the question came up again. Oh man, what do you think about the race and who's running and this candidate? Oh, and how come you're not running? So I gave them my spiel. And so my wife then steps into that conversation and says, I think, because one of the important things that anybody that runs for public office, you have to weigh in is when you're a mayor, you're giving up a lot of time.
Mhm.
And if you've got a young family, I have twins, they're turning 13 this month. I liked coming home at the end of the day. I liked, uh, you know, my weekends, right? Being able to focus and do things around the house and do things with my family. And so my wife then says, I think you being the mayor might be more important than just what's happening within our walls as a family, which is crazy. Nothing is more important in your family, right? Except God, if you believe in God. But I knew what she meant. She's in the business of helping people just like me. She's worked in the school district for a very long time. And you know, uh, we expanded that conversation more. Well, what does that mean? What does it mean for a city that more than half are Latino having its potential first Puerto Rican mayor? Knowing how I can navigate perspectives, bring people together, facilitate collaboration, having some experience to hit the ground running to tackle the most pressing challenges that are affecting our local government, and even being a product of the environment, understanding what it is, what it feels like to grow up in a family in a household in the city's poorest neighborhood, and the challenges and how we've overcame. Like there's a lot of good. So that's where she was coming from, the lens or the angle she was looking at it, and so I got a little motivated. That was the endorsement I didn't know I needed to feel confident enough to say, you know what, we're going to do this. So the very next day, I pulled papers.
My gosh. And I think it's such a testament to who you are as a person to have had so many people in your circle and in your life to keep nudging you and to have that incredible support from your wife and from your family to go for it.
One of the things that I can never explain whenever we have these conversations and people, there is something there that I cannot explain to you what it is, why or how come, and people have different definitions of or different perspectives of what it means, but there is something there, and I don't know what it is that somehow just the path is it just keeps it like things happen at the right moment and the right time,
Mhm.
and then decisions are made, challenges are overcame, and we just keep moving forward. And I just feel like that's always it's almost, you can call it the angel watching over, you can call it, divine intervention. I don't know. From a kid, even as a kid to even right now, as sit here in this office, there are just so many things that come in my path that just keep me on this certain trajectory. And I'm very, very uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Very appreciative. I
Mhm.
feel very blessed.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder, what would that kid who lived on South Summer Street think to see where you are today? Like that must be like very gratifying and almost like getting the chills to think about that.
It is. It's funny you say that because we sometimes when I'm with childhood friends or friends I've known for a very long time, and these conversations happen, right? We're hanging out and saying, "Man, would you ever thought, or can you believe that? Did you think that you would?" Or no, no, that's I never thought or imagined that I'd be sitting here. I remember the first day that I walked into this office. It was a surreal feeling, that's for sure. But at the same time, though, Ashley, I got to tell you, just for anybody that's listening, it's not what you think it is.
Mhm. I can
And
imagine.
I knew this coming in just because, you know, I've been my passion is in local government management,
Hmm.
and government is designed so that no one person is in total power control, and everything leads to the people. And in a micro level, when I was in Blandford, we did so well in that town, helping that community overcome its own challenges, achieving some of their own objectives and what they wanted to accomplish in town. And we've done so much. And what I learned about myself, the greatest skill set that I bring to the table is, and this is critical, you can have all the right ideas in the world, and you're probably right, right? What you needs to be done needs to be done. And but if you're coming into local government and you don't know how to navigate perspectives and bring people together focused in one direction forward, and because it's very complex stuff,
Hmm.
you're going to get chased out of town. Like it's
Yeah.
going to do a toll on you. And I realized when I was in Blandford, that skill that I had, and I combined that with knowing the job. And, it's something that I bring to the table here in our city. So coming in, I knew the challenge, the difficulty was going to be that it's not what people think it is. But there are people that do run for mayor thinking, and they're I don't believe that there's no one person that doesn't like. I think people genuinely want to go in and change things. They're going to run
Yeah.
for a position. They want to change things, right? Whatever perception they have of the world or what needs to be done in their community, they go in, make a case, get elected, and they're like, yes, and then realize that it doesn't really it's not that easy. It's a lot more complex than what you think. And next thing you know, there's a huge learning curve. Learning curves are expensive. Learning curves
Yeah.
set people back. Um, and uh, and so it is if you're okay with understanding that and ready to hit the ground running and do what needs to be done to move the needle a little bit and improve things, then you're already 50% there.
And I'm glad that you brought that up because one question that came to mind for me after hearing you share that is that I imagine there's a lot that kind of rides on you mentally and emotionally, trying to manage a city with making sure everyone's happy and that things are running smoothly. And so I'm curious to hear how you manage that with having so many, like you mentioned, different perspectives and different people you need to support, how you kind of balance that all without letting it overtake you, if that makes sense.
Well, I'll answer the question, but to answer the question of if somehow I figured out how to balance my own personal life with the obligations of the job, the short answer to that is I haven't. It's still a challenge.
Hmm.
I haven't been uh, the best as present as I probably should be in my personal life, and I haven't really quite figured out the best hobbies to engage in to decompress, right? But thankfully, I got a very supportive family. I got a very supportive network of friends that understand um, uh, the position that I'm in and do what they can to help support it. Um, but to answer the question, you know, you can't come into this job thinking you're going to make everybody happy. The What allows me to get through the challenges and get through it well, right? And to the point where I'm not being chased out of town is again focusing on the management lens. What do the laws say? What flexibility are allowed within those laws, depending on what conversation we're having, and making sure that you're a mayor that holds people accountable and maintains consistency in your enforcement objectives, consistency in your plan, in what you want to focus and for the most part, people people across the spectrum appreciate that
Hmm.
um, because you're eliminating once you start getting into the favoritism, the thing about or uh, there were concerns for a very long time, inconsistent enforcement of uh, building inspection, board of health, um, you know, uh, depending on who you knew or what area of town you lived in or the business was in, or among other things. Um, it's just we came into this job promising to the community that the quality of life challenges that exist in our city are due to a bigger uh, issue, and I strongly believe that that issue was a foundation that just wasn't strong in our local government to keep up with those things. Um, that coupled with whatever larger systemic issues, and that's a whole other conversation that exists in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that has established a level of challenges for gateway cities like Holyoke. Um, so, keeping it focused on the management lens, I can execute enforcement and people come around and say, hey, he did say that's what he was going to do. And even if you were a victim in that issue, right? If you were like, depending on what subject area we're talking about, you get caught up, something's enforced. I have people that come around and say, I've all the years I've been here, I actually appreciate this, right? Like, and people, so I'm able to put my head down at night and know that, like, what we're doing here by simply enforcing the basic rules, just the basic stuff. It's like when your mom used to tell you, like, clean your room, make your bed, put your shit, doesn't matter the furniture you have in your room, right? Like it just make sure your bed is made and your clothes are hung up and your laundry is done. Those basic things that really spread positively and help address urban blight, absentee landlord issues, people's attitudes about how they maintain their properties and cleanliness and things of that nature. And so once people started feeling like, wow, the city actually cares, then people start chipping in and feeling
Right.
prideful. And when you feel pride, you want to help, you want to do something. And so that's what we're trying to do here.
Absolutely. And on the topic that you brought up of following through on the things you said you were going to do, I would love to hear some of the initiatives or positive changes you've been a part of since your time as mayor that you're really have proud to have steered the ship for.
So my focus is working from the bottom up and middle out. And when I say middle out, and remember, I came in post COVID. Well, just just near end COVID, then post COVID. And so the magnitude of the issues, well, we already had issues before, and the magnitude of these issues just exasperated even more, right? And so I had to really figure out, like, man, my face is in a front of a fire hydrant and all this, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so we took a step back and said, okay, let's focus in the middle being inside City Hall. And as important everything else is, if we can just get our house in order, then things are going to start reflecting positively outward.
Mhm.
And that's what we did. We focused our attention internally on building up departments and staff capacity because we had departments that were under-resourced, understaffed, people underpaid. And in turn, that created other issues, right? Like the job not being done, or maybe not being done as efficient and effective as it could be done, or not being done at all, which then would create other issues because every function in our government is critical to the health and safety of the community. Everything local government does is to improve health in the community.
Mhm.
And so when one of those functions are not working properly or whatever, you're going to see an effect transpire because there's no monitoring of that issue. And when you're a city like Holyoke, where we're an economically disadvantaged community, quickly we can be taken advantage of from people that are just don't have the best intentions. Like I said, absentee landlords, people buying
Yeah.
property and not caring about their overflowing dumpster in the back of the building, right? Or and other concerns. So we focused internally and we really buttoned things up so that we had a stronger um, uh, government that can keep up with the issues that are happening externally. That continues to be our number one priority, and it's hard to say what's more important than other things because everything's a priority.
Right.
But it's like your own household. If mom and dad aren't doing well, the kids can be affected, right? Mom and dad lose their job, or maybe dad has a drinking problem, right? Or if mom and dad aren't doing well, everything else can be affected. The condition of the house, the maintenance of the grass, the kids going, and their oversight
Yeah.
from their parents, right? Like, so that was the priority. It continues to be, while we also keep in mind the things that we need to get done, whether if it's capital investments, different improvements, improving our objectives around public safety, focusing on getting our schools out of receivership back into local control, investing in our school buildings, building a new middle school. Like there's all these other things that like all those things depend on a strong internal government. And so the idea was to get the tides to kind of rise together and things start
Mhm.
reflecting more positively. Um, but some of the things I'm very proud about in that arena there is, you know, stepping up our enforcement game with what we call the Flex Squad initiative. Uh, Departments on a weekend for 4 hours, block by block, doing neighborhood sweeps, issuing citations on basic code infraction issues, vegetation overgrowth, trash, and among other visual uh, infractions that might conflict with our local ordinances. And that really helped change attitudes out in the community about how people treat the properties and
Mhm.
the neighborhoods. The work that's happening out of the police department, especially in the climate that we were in regarding policing all across the United States. We, have when I came in, we committed to doing an audit in the PD, and we did that audit mostly to understand what is it we do well and what were some of the gaps or challenges are that we need to really be thinking about. How can we improve our deficiencies identified in that audit? That essentially led us eventually to, bring on board a chief, a new chief that is really doing an extraordinary job. And really, I've always felt we had a good department making it better, right? Like really elevating the profession over there at the department. But the important program that we have coming out of there, they call it the community response. The it's a internal task force within the department that do outreach work focused on people struggling with opioid addiction, among other health disparities that are contributing or having a negative impact to um, uh, the health of an individual or neighborhood. And that's kind of expanding, and we're trying to establish what we're calling the community response division, which includes that program among other programs like, space for returning citizens, people coming out of prison, trying to reintegrate back into the neighborhoods and community. And then establishing a community response director position that then works with these different functions and is able to help better respond to basic neighborhood concerns that might lead to displacement. It's just really trying to think outside the box in very creative ways on how we address the social issues that are contributing to other quality of life issues that might exist. And I
Mhm.
know I'm rambling, but the important thing to understand, Ashley, about Holyoke is that we're a very compassionate city. And although compassion does bring in certain quality of life challenges, I remind our citizens every day not to forget who we are as Hoyokers. Since the
Mhm.
beginning of since we were incorporated as a city where when you're down and out on your luck, there is opportunity here to get back on your feet. And so we try to walk on that line, and we always have, to the point where we forgot about enforcement. But now, like, I've been applying a little bit of enforcement so that, like, so that we're achieving the right balance of what we need to turn a city around.
Yep, absolutely. And it's inspiring to hear about all of the improvements that have already been implemented, and of course, the improvements that are to come in the future. And I'm curious to hear from your perspective as both a lifelong citizen and the mayor of Holyoke, like what makes Holyoke such a great place to live in, to work in, to start a business in, raise a family in? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, for starters, what's the city of Holyoke, they say that we're the first planned industrial city in the United States. And people before us have built an infrastructure here that attracted industries of that time, an infrastructure that helped keep, we're talking about, we were a mill town. So we had these factories that sucked a lot of energy to help power their machines and keep their lights on. And so the infrastructure they built here, the canals, the dam, they were doing green before green was even thought of, was a thing. And because of that infrastructure, those very assets that exist, we have the lowest energy in the Northeast, the lowest energy rates in the Northeast around. And we hear a lot about, I'm sure you heard in the news about Eversource and
Yep.
people's bills going. We don't have that problem here because of, we're, one of the things that we like to tout is, we're 80% or more carbon free when it comes to producing electricity and people taking advantage of the energy and our low rates. And so, you take that coupled with the fact that we do own our like four and this is grander. I'm talking about, you know, things that people built a long time ago, thinking of the future and how we're going to achieve sustainability for the future. We're a small city of 38,000 people, and we compete with large metropolitan cities. And we're a very sustainable community, given the fact that we own and maintain and manage our own resources that allow us to supply clean water, keep energy rates low, keep utility rates low. We have free trash pickup, which is usually a benefit. Now, thinking of the other things that people, when they're, I know when people are looking to move to a city, they're not necessarily looking at those things per se, but things that exist here, and I often argue like because people will say like Holyoke is a what's the word? I can't an inaccessible community as far as like access to amenities or basic things that kids and families and people need access to have good, healthy lives. We have it here. We have green space that's walkable in almost, I think, every neighborhood in our city. So there's access to parks and playgrounds where you can live next to and raise your families. We have a combination of urban feel, right, in our downtown. Then you have West Holyoke, where it's more rural. So there's a combination of natural assets and resources that exist around us that people like to take advantage of and include into having a good quality of life. The public library that we have is state of the art, and it's walkable within the core downtown area to get to. Um, uh, Schools built in almost every neighborhood. Again, schools are walkable and accessible. Um, uh, we have a standalone senior center. Elderly folks from all across Western Mass go to our senior center. And you got healthier and wealthier communities that might not have a senior center like the one that we do, or they don't have a playground they can easily walk to maybe walk laps, or a hiking trail like we might have in West Holyoke, or we have the Children's Museum that people all across the state find their way and make it to a merry-go-round in our down. We have all of these assets there for the public to use and take advantage of, create memories, raise their families that may not exist in other communities.
Yeah.
So it's a Holyoke thing. The people here we're stubbornly proud, and always try to encourage people to stop in and visit and understand us and learn why people love the city so much, and the hopes that they will agree and want to buy a home here and raise their families here.
Absolutely. And for anyone who's listening to this episode who is interested in getting involved in their local government, whether it's through a paid position or volunteering, what advice would you have for them, knowing that you have such extensive experience in all of that?
Well, it's just because once upon a time in our world history here, it was a time when we were focused on how do we build each other up as neighbors? How can I help my neighbor and take care of my community? And it went from that to never mind that, what's in it for me. Rightfully so, because we get caught up in we're very busy and everyone's grinding and working and hustling and to the point where you start to lose that basic idea and value and time and whatever the case. But um, understanding that when you do something in your city where you live, it has a direct impact to improving the quality of life of your city and people's attitudes and how they treat your town or city. And if anybody was to get involved, it's getting involved, understanding that there's greater good there.
Mhm.
If you are listening though, and you're worried and concerned about what's happening in the world, and what's happening even in our country, and don't know what to do, like I often try to encourage people, look, if you want to make a difference to what's happening in the world, do something in your corner that will help spread positively and bring cheer in the area that you live and work. And so sometimes that helps get your mind off what might be happening in Washington or what might be happening in the other side of the planet. Um, and by acting locally, and having an impact in the lives of people that live around you, then you can start feeling like you're making a real difference. And so there's a feeling that you get out of that makes people, again, you start feeling good, and that pride that I was talking about earlier comes out. Next thing you know, you want to do more and it becomes addictive.
Mhm.
But take care of your neighborhoods, take care of your community, and do it in a positive way, and you'll definitely feel and see the impact that your contributions has made any little bit that you can do.
I love that. And this is a fun question, but might be tough for you to answer as mayor. I love to ask our podcast guests what their favorite local businesses are to support. So I'm curious to hear your favorite places to support in Holyoke.
I support all of them.
Good answer.
All right, there is one, and it's because I'm biased. So I grew up in South Holyoke on South Summer Street, right next to Capri Pizza. And I've been when you live next to a pizza shop and you smell that pizza, and I've been eating there since I was a kid, for a very long time, then it becomes nostalgia.
Mhm.
So Capri Pizza, I will say, is the best pizza. My favorite spot I like to go to and check in from time to time, in town. But other than that, we have a lot of great different establishments here that definitely worth trying, and checking out.
Great answer. I love it. Mayor Garcia, this has been a really great episode, and I've appreciated having you on the show. And I would love to have you share with our listeners where they can find you online or connect with the city online in case they'd like to reach out and connect further.
Well, there's our City of Holyoke website, www.holyoke.org. I'm very, very active on social media, so any of the social media feeds, whether if it's TikTok, X, Facebook, Instagram, um, uh, you can certainly follow me there, and watch things unfold as I'll do periodic, regular updates. Um, and yeah, so not as unaccessible as what people might think. Very accessible.
Perfect. And I will link to those places in the show notes so that way our listeners can click through and easily connect with you from there. But thank you so much again for coming on today's show.
Excellent. Thanks so much for having me.